Hello everyone, welcome to 3ddesignacademy.com. In this lesson, we'll continue with part 3 of the Mercedes-Benz E-Class Coupe project. Okay, so in the previous lesson, we spent some time working on the wheel flat, and I am going to continue on and work on the roof of the car. So in order to that, what I'm going to do is just go to the side view like this, and I'm going to lay out some curves for the roof. So let's go ahead and grab an edit point curve. It's going to be degree 2 like this, and I'm just going to lay out some curves. Well, actually, I'm going to start at the center. So you see that there is a windshield right here. So I'm just going to go ahead and lay out some curves so that we can sort of mimic the shape. So let's do that. And I'm going to, not a circle, but a curve. I'm going to probably set this point as a theoretical for the top part. So I think, I guess it'll just depend on the shape. So let's go ahead and lay out some curves. And if there needs to be any adjustments, we can do that later. And for the rear glass, I'm going to just lay out some curves there. And because it is a little bit subflush, I am going to make it parallel, but I'm not going to attach it directly to the glass. I'm going to do something like this, and I'm going to lower this point over here, and I'm going to lower this point over here so that it touches over here. And I'm just going to make it a little bit parallel like this, and I'm going to use the stretch tool to point it down like this. And I think this is a pretty good spot. Now I'm going to extend it just a little bit so that there is an intersection point. I think that looks pretty good, and I'm going to give it a little bit of acceleration. Well, actually, never mind. I think I'm just going to leave it like this. And for the front, I am going to give it a little more crown, like that. And I think that doesn't look too bad. Okay, so I'm just going to extend the curves, and I might just lower this point a little bit, like that. And I think that looks pretty good. Okay, so let's actually lower this point just a little bit. We just want to make sure that we are basically hitting all the curves that we can see in the orthographic drawing, like this. And I think that looks pretty good. Okay, that doesn't look too bad. And I actually might make this a 3-degree curve because we do need some acceleration towards the front and the rear. So maybe I'll just do that, and let's go ahead and extend. Now the windshield, I prefer not to give it a lot of acceleration just because we have to make sure that this line works. So I'm just going to leave it without any lead-in, but the top glass, the top line, I might do some adjustments. Okay. So let's go ahead and give it a little bit of acceleration, a little bit lead in this way, and I'm going to give it a little bit lead in this way, and I might just do a little adjustment here so that when you look at it with the curvature comb, you got a nice acceleration towards either end. That's going to help out the surface have a little have the fillet have a little bit more better time transitioning, rather than if you were to just leave it with zero acceleration. Okay, so I think that looks pretty good, and I am going to make sure that these two touch. So let's go ahead and extend this piece, and I'm just going to extend them back. And now let's copy and paste all the curves like this, and I'm just going to fit it to this portion over here. Okay, so when I'm doing the fitting, I think this portion, this line right here is the one that I need to fit to. But before I do that, let me see if I can find a picture that might have a little bit of tip of view. Okay, so I think this is probably good. Okay, so here's what I'm going to do. I think this black line, the outside line is where I guess the pillar starts. So I think I'm going to use that. So let's go ahead and do that. Actually, let me just make sure that it fits. So let me just shrink it for a little bit. Okay, so I think portion right here is the line that we want to achieve. Okay, so in order to do that, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to, let's go ahead and pull all the lines out, all the curves. I'm just going to, oh, let me just drag it outward like this. And I'm just going to, well, actually before that, let me just drag it down so that it fits. And I'm just going to make some adjustments on the curves so that they are nice and fitting to the orthographic drawings. Okay, so I'm just going to point this down like this, and I am going to increase the height, and I'm just going to make sure that I'm hitting this curve right here. And let's go ahead and do the front as well. Like this, and I'm just going to give it a little bit less crown over here. I think that looks good. And let's go ahead and extend this back a little bit. Okay, so I think that looks pretty good. I might need to lower this section a bit and this one. Okay, so I think everything looks pretty good, and let's go ahead. And I'm going to try to keep this a somewhat complementary, so that it's a somewhat, I guess, radial, because I don't, because I want the shapes to be, well, when I'm doing an insert, I want the shapes to be really nice and talk to each other, because if they don't, it's kind of hard to create a clean surface. Okay, so I'm just going to use the stretch tool to snap this over here, and this one I think this is the line that we actually want to hit, so I'm going to just make some adjustment over here. Now you want to make sure that the shape of this curve and this curve in the middle is very similar, because if it's not, that's going to create some problems. So you just want to make sure that it is similar, and I'm just going to drag this down like this, so that it's hitting the curve right here. I think that doesn't look too bad. And I'm just going to use a stretch tool to snap it here, and I think that's fitting quite nicely. Okay, actually I might just give it a little bit of puff over here, and I might just lower this a little bit and lower this portion. Well, actually I think I'm just going to keep that as is. I am going to lower this one a little bit. Okay, so that looks good from the side view. So now what you have to do is you just got to make sure that all the CVs stays somewhat stationary from the side view. So what you have to do is you got when you are adjusting all the curves from the top view, you got to make sure that you are only adjusting it in the y-axis. So when you're adjusting it, you got to make sure that you are only using the right mouse button from the top view, so that it's not going all over the place. Okay, so there might be some adjustments that I need to make. We'll do that later, but I'm just going to make sure all those CVs are sort of lined up. So let's go ahead and do that. And I think that looks pretty straight. Well, maybe there's a little bit negative here. Okay. And I'm just going to pull the CV up like this so that it's fitting nicely. I'm just going to pull this down over here and pull this line up over here. So you just want to make sure that everything's got a nice gesture. Okay, so that looks good. And I'm going to continue on with this side. And I'm going to, looks like it has a little bit bow. And I just want to make sure it's nice and straight like that. Okay, so I think all the curves are fitting actually pretty nicely. So let's go ahead and make the roof. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new layer, and I'm going to just call it symmetry like this. And I'm going to select these curves, the outside curves, and I'm going to assign them over here. And I'm going to turn the layer symmetry on like this, and we got curves on the other side. So now let's go ahead and do a skin. The reason why you want to do skin is because the skin skin has a very unique feature which allows you to connect the curves and make sure it makes sure that you are hitting all the points exactly. So what you want to do is you want to click this one, and you are going to hold down shift. You're going to click this one, and you're going to click on the third curve, and it's going to create a surface that's going through all of it, and it's going to hit all the curves exactly. So if I were to just, let's see, I'm going to turn the patch precision on. If I turn it on, you'll see that it's hitting the middle curve exactly, even though it's got a nice volume over here. So this is what you want to do. Okay, so now I'm going to continue on with the center portion. So I'm going to grab skin again, and I'm going to start from this side. You want to make sure that you hold down shift. You just want to click like this so that you have a nice surface. Now if you don't hold down shift, what you're going to do is you're going to get two different sections. So you'll see that there is a peak. This is not a peak that you want to have. So if you want this to be smooth, you just want to make sure that you hold down shift like this, and there we go. I'm going to just continue on over here. And I'm going to make sure that all the surfaces are actually in the default layer, because it doesn't need a symmetry, because it's actually going through the center of the center of the grid. Okay, so that looks pretty good. However, I think this needs a little bit round. So let's go ahead and give it a little bit of surface, a little bit of gesture. So I'm just going to push this down so that it sort of follows the shape of the windshield. Okay, so I'm going to do the same thing over here. Now let's see. I don't know if I want to pull this in. I think I might do that. So what I'm going to do is, now when you're doing this, you want to make sure that everything is hitting nicely. So I'm just going to pull this out like this, and I'm just going to sort of make the shape similar to this one. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab the curve over here, and I'm going to just snap it like this. And I think we can probably afford to push this down, because I think it's popping up too much compared to this side. So let's go ahead and just adjust it a little bit from this side. Now the history is on, so everything is going to follow nicely. And well, actually, let me just do that like this. And I think that looks pretty good. And I'm just going to check it from the side view to make sure that we are not deviating too much. I think that this might have gone up a little bit too much. So I'm just going to play around with the CVs, make sure that they're hitting all the points nicely. Okay, so I think, well, I think there's a little deviation, but it's overall not too bad. And I am going to shift this one a little bit rearward like this, so that the gesture between all the curves are radial. Okay, so that looks pretty good. And now let's okay, so it doesn't look too bad. Oh, okay, so the only thing that I'm going to do over here is this one. So I'm just going to extend this curve back a little bit. I'm just going to make sure that it is close. It doesn't have to be exact, but close should get you a little bit better results in the end. Okay, so I think everything looks good. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn symmetric modeling on, and I'm going to adjust the CVs a little, because with the skin tool, what you get is a degree 2 curve or degree 2 surface. So it doesn't have any acceleration towards either end. But if you look at the automotive surfacing, you'll notice that there's a little bit of acceleration towards the end. So you want to add that to make it very, to have a very nicely transitioning surface. Now, to be honest, I don't know why there is an acceleration towards the end, but if you even see this photo here, or actually maybe this one might work better, you'll see that there's more, I guess, a radius towards either end of the car. It does give the car a better gesture, because the acceleration is accelerating towards the end instead of just having a very constant flat acceleration in the center. Okay, so let's go back to Alias, and I am going to change these into degree 3 manually like this. And let's go ahead and do the same thing for all the other surfaces. And let's just take a look. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to start at the center. And well, you can turn the curvature comb on. I don't usually do it, but as you can see, if you look at the curvature comb, it's got a very constant acceleration. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab all the CVs. I am going to use the slide function. So let's go ahead and grab the whole selection mode and slide function over here. And I'm going to have the mouse sensitivity at 50. So now what you want to do is you want to grab the second row over here and you want to grab this side like this, and you just want to push them out. And you'll see that the CVs go outward. You'll see that the acceleration, the curvature comb is changing. This is exactly what you want. Now, when you are doing this, you got to make sure that you pick the inside one, because if you click the outside one, it's going to shift the CVs this way, which is going to give you a positional error over here. So you just want to make sure that this you're just playing with this one. And I'm going to give it a little bit of acceleration like this. And I think now you don't want to do it too much, but you want to do it enough so that it's got a nice acceleration towards either side. And you'll see that the highlight changed a little bit. So if it was just a flat, it looks, there's no hook on either side. But if you give it a little bit of acceleration, you'll see that it's actually going this way and this way. That is the actual desired highlight. So you want to make sure to do that. Okay, so now let's go ahead and do this one. Okay. So now that the center is done, what you can do is there's several ways that you can do this, but what I like to do is I like to use a line so that we get precise movement. So I'm just going to grab this one over here, and I'm going to just align it to here. And now you'll see that only the top CVs are aligned, which is fine, but you want to make sure that the others follow as well. So you're gonna turn blending on, and position influence, you want to check it to max so that it's actually positional. And now I'm going to have extra CV rows 1 and 2 so that this one shifts as well. And I am going to make sure that the blend factor is at 0. The only problem is you'll see that compared to the original location of the CVs, you'll see that it exactly moved. Let's say this is a unit of 1. I don't know how many mils exactly it is, but let's say you moved, well, let's say just for just a guess, let's say you moved 50 mils. It moved 50 mils here, 50 mils here, and 50 mils here. But if you look at the shape, it should actually a little bit, it should be more gradual like this. So what you can do is you can either shift the CVs this way manually, or you can also use a blend factor. So if you go less than 0, then let's say -1, you'll see that, well, actually, you know what? That's going to curve the CVs. So I am going to just leave it on 1, and I think we do have to do this manually. Okay, so I just deleted the construction history because align history is on. I'm going to turn symmetric modeling back on, and now I'm going to grab transform CV again. And with the Hall selection mode, what you can do is, now you can do a proportional modification, but Hall selection mode also allows you to adjust this one. So what you want to do is click on this arrow, not these ones, but this one in the middle. And with that, what you can do is you can just drag it, and it's going to keep this as is, and it's going to drag these ones outboard like this. So it's really actually pretty convenient, and because the symmetric modeling is on, it's whatever you do here, it's going to be duplicated onto the other side. Okay, so that looks pretty good. It's got a nice acceleration over here. Although I think it looks kind of flat in the middle, so I might have to change that. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to puff this out a little bit because I think the highlight looks a little funny. Yeah, I think I'm going to do a little bit of change here. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab these ones in here, and I think I'm just going to drag them over here like this and see how the highlight reacts. Okay, so I think that's a little bit better, and I'm going to do just a single CV selection, and I'm just going to drag this down. Well, I don't know if, I think the problem is this side, one of the side is a little bit flat compared to the other, so that's why you are getting this kind of frown. So let's take a look. Now, I don't want to do it too much because that might ruin the CV structure, or not the CV structure, but the shape. So let me, actually, you know what? Let's just leave it for now, and let's take a look a little bit later. Okay, so I am going to turn on ISO angle tools and check. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of the CV structure over here. Not the CV structure, but the highlight. So I'm going to try and see if I can just adjust some of the CVs to see if I can just adjust this one, adjust the highlight a little bit more and make it a bit smoother. Okay, so I think this is due to the acceleration, but you'll see that there is a little wave over here. Now I am going to be putting a generous fillet here, so I don't think it should matter that much, but you just want to make sure that all the CV structure is good. Now I think I'm, well, I don't know if I want to really drag this down. Okay, you know what? I think I'm just going to leave it. And if it causes a highlight issue, so we'll have to, I think it looks, well, maybe it looks okay. The zebra stripes, it looks okay. I don't know if it's ISO and just the ISO angle tool. And well, of course, so you can just try to change the vector direction. I mean, it does look pretty straight, so maybe I'll just leave it. Okay, all right. So that is that, and let's go ahead and adjust this one in the rear. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to again align. I'm going to grab this end and I'm going to just align it over here. Now again, you'll see that this moved exactly the same amount all the way through. So what you want to do is, first of all, delete the construction history, and I'm going to use symmetric modeling. And I'm going to just use the transform CV tool with the hull selection mode. And I'm just going to shift it a little bit outboard like this, so that the shapes are similar. Now for this one, it looks like the shape is not exactly the same as the canvas. So I am going to do a little bit of shift. I am going to do a proportional modification on this one. I'm going to grab one more rows of CV, and I'm just going to slide it down like this. And looks like the shape is pretty good. I think this one well, there's a little bit deviation, but I think it should be okay. And let's just check the highlight to make sure that there's a little peak, and I think that looks pretty good. Okay, so I do think that there's a little bit more volume on the rear. So what I could do is, well, let's first of all turn the patch precision on. Well, okay, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to just grab these two curves over here, and I'm just going to pull them up a little bit because I think that might help with the highlight just a little bit. Okay, so now you'll see that the highlight changes from a little bit, you'll see that it's more spread out towards the front. That is due to the difference in highlight between the front and the rear. Now you can try to adjust it. Well, I think it looks, it doesn't look too bad. But you'll definitely see a shape like this. I think that is partly due to the amount of volume difference we have. What you can do is you can just use NUV to just make it a little bit flatter here so that the transition is a little bit smoother. But you just got to make sure that you are adhering to the shape of the orthographic drawing. So right now you'll see that it popped up actually quite a bit. So it just depends on where things are. But for my purposes, I think I'm just going to actually drag it back down because I think it's might be a little bit too much. Okay. So I'm going to grab this CV over here, one of the CVs, and I'm just going to drag it down like this so that at least this line is below the cube or the prism that we made. Okay, so let me just check the highlights again. I think, well, I think it looks fine. Okay, so now let's go ahead and put a fillet between the glasses. First of all, I'm going to turn all the patch precision off and like this. And let's go ahead and do a surface fillet. It's going to be chord. It's going to be G2 like this. And I prefer, well, it should actually be G3, but I prefer to keep things at a degree 5. That's just my preference. If you're to making like a true class A, like absolutely production ready, you should actually be using G3. But with G2, you can also mimic the shape of a G3, at least the acceleration part of it in the lead-in. So you can, well, it's just up to you. All right, so I'm just going to grab surface fillet. It's going to be chord G2. Form factor of, well, you want to make sure that you want to you use form factor of 0.5 because you do want the smooth curvature comb from the front to the back. Okay, so I'm going to give it a quarter length of, let's see, I'm going to start with at least a 300 because it is a big fillet. So I'm just going to say edge line over here, and I'm going to just check it against the canvas. You'll see that it's a little bit, there's a little bit of peak. So what you want to do is just increase the size until you get something that is similar. Now, I think it is due to the form factor, but I think I can probably just increase a little bit more. So 600. I think that's pretty close. It's starting to be a little bit flat here. But at least the center portion, I think it's matching well. I don't think I want to go any more than that. Okay, so I think this is pretty good. All right, so I would say that's a pretty good size of fillet over here. I just want to make sure the CV structure is okay. I do think that there's a little more. I think we can just pull this line down just a bit so that the CV structure is a little bit more balanced. Okay, so I'm going to do the same thing over here. So I'm going to grab this side, I can probably start with 600 and hopefully this doesn't fail. Okay, so I think the reason why it's doing this is looks like Alias is frozen. Oh, okay, so one of the reasons why it's doing this is because I think there is too little of an angle difference between these two surfaces. So I think it's creating a very weird fillet. So what you can do is, at least for the rear one, I think I just need to build it manually. Okay, so let's go ahead and fix this one. So we know what size it needs to be. So let's go ahead and delete the construction history over here. And I'm just going to untrim here, and I'm going to untrim here. Let's get rid of the curved surfaces on both sides, and I'm just going to do an insert. I'm going to snap a point right here, and actually I'm going to pull this down a little bit, just a little bit, and I'm going to do the same thing over here, and I'm going to just push it forward, at least this edge, a little bit too. So let's delete this one, and I'm going to, well, actually, let's just grab this edge. Oh, not that one. And grab this edge over here. Okay, so the symmetry layer, you can just turn it off. It's not necessary anymore. Wait, did I should have duplicated this. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so now let's go ahead and trim this one, and I'm going to trim this one. And this surface is actually no longer necessary. I am going to, however, align this curve over here like this. It's going to be, blending is going to be off. It's going to be G2, and I'm going to do the same thing over here. I'm just going to pull this forward a little bit. Okay, so now you'll notice that the CV structure is a little bit more even because I pulled it down. So previously it looked like this was going up a little bit, but now it's a little bit better. I think the balance is good. And well, actually this one is no longer necessary, and I am going to put this curve in the symmetry layer over here, And let's go ahead and use a square to rebuild this. Okay, so you want to grab this curve, and this curve, and there we go. 1 and 3 is going to be curvature like this, and it did transform into a degree 5, but because this is only a degree 3 surface, what you can do is do an explicit control, and that can remain at degree 3. All you have to do is just make this into a degree 5, and now you got a very nice transition between the front glass and also the roof. I think the highlight is actually not that bad. Yeah, well, at least because it's got a very nice transition, so that's good. Okay, so for the rear, I am going to, well, actually this is very flat over here, so let's go ahead and do something in similar size. So let's just hide these curves for a second. In order to make this, I'm just going to say use a curve fillet. It's going to be chord, it's going to be G2. I'm going to do 600, and of course for the form factor, I'm going to say 0.5 like this, and hopefully this should not have any problem making it. Okay, so it looks like Alias is taking a little bit of time. Hopefully it doesn't fail because I don't think I saved. I actually can't believe that this is having a difficult time, even though it's just a curve fillet, not a, oh, okay. All right, so I guess that is off the table, and I am actually going to save so that if it blows up, I can at least go back. Okay, so for this one, what I'm going to do is I don't think the tools are allowing me to create the necessary surface that I want. So I'm just going to use a tubular offset like this. And I'm going, just for the size reference, I'm going to say 300. Let's see, 300 over here like this, so that it is the distance between these two edges are about 600, just like the front. Okay, so let's just do a measurement, and you'll see that it's, well, it's pretty close. It's about 600. Okay, so these curves are curved surfaces on the other, however, are just for reference only. If you were to just use them, it's going to give you a great many spans. So let's say I want to just do this, you'll end up with, well, in this case, like 14 spans. Even if I make it a degree 5, it's still got 10. So what you want to do is do the same thing that we did on the front. So you just want to use the insert tool, and you just, oh, is it this side? Oh, there we go. And you just want to make sure that you go somewhere in the middle like this, so that it's somewhat similar. And you want to do the same thing over here, and the original curved surface that was there, just want to make sure to delete. It is the first one, or the, I guess that this is the second one, I guess. You just want to delete those, and I'm going to delete this one, and let's go ahead and trim over here, and now let's go ahead and use the blend tool. So I'm going to align over here, do the same thing over here, and now, well, actually I don't really need to, I can just always use the symmetry function. Okay, so for this one, what I'm going to do is, you'll see that there's a little bit of well, we need a nice almost a G3 like condition. So you just want to grab this one and just pull all the CVs to the middle. Now I think it's a little bit leaning towards this side, on the left side, so I'm going to just pull it back a little bit over here, and I'm going to push this a little bit this way so that the CV structure is a little bit balanced. Actually, I'll actually take that back, because right now the CVs are diving down a little bit. So I think I'm just, the automated location of the blend curve is, I think, what I'm going to follow. Okay, because right now it's nice and balanced. Let's push it towards the center so that it does have a nice G3 like curvature comb. Okay, so I think that's good. Okay, so if you want to just check the curvature comb over here, so you will see that it's got a very smooth transition from here to here. Although I think I should have put some acceleration on this one, but well, Actually, you know what? Let's do that. I don't think I want to leave it like this. So what you want to do is you want this surface to have a little bit of acceleration towards the front, because I think it's actually going the other way, and the curvature comb actually looks pretty bad. So what you want to do is okay, so the symmetric modeling is on, and I'm going to grab just transform CV hull selection mode like this, and I'm just going to push this one towards the front like this, and you'll see that the curvature comb is rising as it goes towards this side. I'm just going to do that. Okay, I don't want to do it too much, but you just want to do it enough so that there's a little bit of acceleration going this side. But because the glass is flat, now the reason why I want to keep the glass flat is because when I'm making the side glass, it just works better. The pillar, just everything, the gesture, all this tend to be a little bit better. So you just want to do that. Now I am going to check the curvature comb on this one, however. Now because it is not a true G2 or G3, I mean, well, actually, look, that looks pretty good. You'll see that, well, there's a little bit of kink, but overall not too bad. It's got a smooth transition. So overall, I think that looks pretty nice. Okay, so let's go back to this side, and I think the curved surface is actually, despite all the move, it stayed where it should have. Actually, let's just check the distance. Yeah, it's still, well, it's deviating a little bit, but overall looks like it's about 600 mils. Now it is not a tube. We did use remake it using the insert tool. So I think that should be okay. And I'm just going to assign the curve on the symmetry layer so that we can rebuild this. So it's going to 1, 2, 3, and 4, and that looks pretty good. And let's just check the highlight. Nice and smooth from, and we got a nice, well, usually the highlight S shape is bad, but in this case, this is exactly what you want. So I think the highlight overall looks pretty good, and I think we are done with the basic shape of the roof. Okay, so that is it for part 3. Well, we will continue in the next tutorial, and thank you guys for watching.